Hey everyone, welcome to Sketch Day. I'm Spencer and today I'm going to draw with you. And to do that, we're going to just do pens, paper, markers, and all that good stuff. I'm going to be drawing something real. I want to show you how I break down a real object and draw it. It's just a soap bottle. So first of all, before we get started, please subscribe to my YouTube. I'm not sure where the button is here yet, but subscribe and turn on your alerts. That way when I post, you'll be the first to know when a new video is posted. Also, check out my Instagram, instagram.com/sketchday.com, and there I post sketches and sometimes stuff from my life, but that's kind of where I hang out most of the time. So that's at sketchday.com. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just take a look at this bottle. So geometrically, we want to kind of analyze it and identify what it looks like. Does it look like a cube? Does it look like a sphere? Does it look like a cylinder? What is it? So to do that, we look at it in what's called orthographic views. While that's not entirely accurate for real life viewing, what I'm suggesting is that you take a look at the top, side, and front of the object. So looking at the top, for you guys on the camera, looks pretty much like a circle, right? And it's a circle that moves through space in one direction. And a circle that moves through space in one direction is a cylinder. So the majority of this is a cylinder. And if you look closely, there's some transition elements like this curve, right? Right there. We've also got the spout at the top that looks like another cylinder. So if I, looking, I guess, from my perspective or point of view, looks like a circle from the top. That's what I'm looking at right there. You can kind of see. And we've also got some other stuff happening here on the top, but we'll get to that later. And we'll probably simplify things a little bit. But it helps when you're trying to draw something, especially if it's something you've never drawn before, to take a look at that object and analyze it for its geometry. What is it that makes up the object? Document and catalog that in your head, and then jump into drawing. But always try to either work light till you get it right, or rough it out when you're in doubt, or when in doubt, rough it out. So first thing I'm going to do is just take a light marker and start to sketch. So I get to decide how I want to place this on the page here. And I'm sketching with my paper vertically. I'm just using regular printer paper today. Really cheap, really easy, and it's fine to work with. So I'm starting by drawing a line on my page, just top to bottom, a fairly straight vertical line. And looking at my bottle here, I get to decide what proportion. In fact, let's just go ahead and just do a 1-to-1. So I'm going to start by, I get to decide what perspective I want this in. And there's multiple ways to do this, but I'm just going to draw an ellipse on the top here, like so, a little bit bigger, and then one on the bottom. Now, if you look at these ellipses, you'll notice something interesting. The top ellipse is smaller than the bottom ellipse. And by smaller, I mean where the minor axis, which is the shorter of the lines that divide this ellipse, look at the proportion of those minor axes. So from here to here and from here to here. And by looking at those lines, what I'm suggesting is that when I look at this bottle, and if you can do this at home, if you take something like a cup or a tube or whatever, hold it up to eye level, and right at eye level, so right here, the top of this will appear to be fairly flat, right? And as I move this in relation to my eye level, so now if I'm still looking straight, but if I project a line from my eyes to the top, I now have an angle. That angle is called the degree of an ellipse. And I've probably said that before, and I'm going to say it again and again and again. But getting the degree of the ellipse will make or break your sketch. Getting it right, rather, will make or break your sketch. So pay attention to that. And relative to your eye, okay, so there is an angle or relationship with the top and the bottom. The bottom is going to be more open than the top, and that's going to create, again, a perception of depth and scale and so forth. And this is important because this is how we see things. And if you can't sketch an approximation of how people see things, people are going to look at your drawings and be like, huh, what? So, and we don't want that. So let's continue. Connecting these sides, we're just focusing on pure geometry here. Pure geometry. meaning I'm not thinking about transitions or where things go. I'm just looking at the proportion of this thing, and we'll figure out the rest. So next, I want to get kind of this neck relationship in proportionally and the top. So I'm going to project up, just put a dot for reference, small lips, bigger lips, connect, connect, and now I have a neck to my bottle. I'm going to drop down, do another ellipse, and I guess I'm lucky here. I have these two ellipses, and I can connect these two like so. These ellipses differ in size, meaning the width, right? So I can connect those two, and now I have the roundness of the side of my bottle. And for the bottom, I'm going to do a smaller ellipse, like so, just like that. Okay? And the reason for that is if you look at the bottom of this bottle, there's a little bit of a chamfer here, okay? And I want to capture that, and then just move up a little bit on this cylinder, and now I'll connect those ellipses I drew with some straight lines, okay? And you can see pretty quickly I have most of this bottle drawn. So if you look at this and then look at this on the screen, I have most of that drawn. And a couple more ellipses here. So as I'm moving up, I'm going smaller, right? And as I'm moving down, I'm going wider with those ellipses. So, and that's all relative to the eye level or position someone's looking at that object. In this case, just me and you. We're looking at it together. Okay, so continuing, I now need to do this kind of spout thing. And I drew a line here. Yeah, I'm a little bit off axis, but it's just a sketch. I'm not going to worry too much about it. I want to look at the proportion of this neck here, this gap, and have an ellipse like so, and then another one at top. So the top is kind of flat, but as I sketch a line out like so, I can start to map out essentially something representative of this spout. The transitions and all that we'll figure out with our black pen once we get to that stage. I just want to capture the essence of that. Okay, so there we go. We have the majority of this bottle sketched out. Pretty cool. And that's just by analyzing the geometry. Okay, so when you think of sketching something, just ask yourself, is any part of this a sphere? Is any part of this a cube? Is any part of this a pyramid, a cone, and so forth? Because those things are easy to understand and can essentially form the framework of more complex or complicated objects that you're going to sketch. Now, I know not everything falls under that classification in terms of rational geometry, but it's a good way to really simplify your approach to drawing something. And there are some pitfalls and fallbacks, like things can tend to be a little bit static if you rely on that geometry, but with experience you can leave that behind and draw on your knowledge and experience and create awesome sketches using this approach. So that being said, we have the majority of our illustration here, and I'm just sketching here just a little ellipse that's slightly offset, and that's because I'm suggesting that there is a light, that's a light bulb by the way, in case you're wondering, that is shining this way. So if I were rendering this, I may have a hot spot here and so forth, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. One of the cool things here is we already have this line right there, and the front of our bottle has this label, right? So I can almost leverage that line that I sketched before. So we're not really wasting lines here, we're just using what we had before. So now I have this label, like so, and probably won't do all the text on the label, but at least we have a position for it. So if we wanted to though, let's say we just wanted to do something simple. You'll notice that here I'm essentially sketching a section of an ellipse. So I started by just sketching these two curves, and I'm going to divide these, and we're going to do two letters. Here's S Again, we're working light till we get it right, so we can correct this as we go, as needed. O. Okay, and the rest of this would be on the label that way, right? And maybe there's some junk text here, little, regulatory stuff, whatever needs to be on this. Do you even need to regulate soap? That's a good question. Is soap regulated? If you know the answer, hit me up in the comments. Is soap regulated? I imagine so, but if you work for a soap company, let me know. So now, just jumping to my felt pen. I'm using a Papermate Flare. I forgot to mention, if you're ever curious about what I use, go to sketchaday.com/stuff or sketchaday.com/stuff I use. And those links should give you access to all the materials I use typically, but I'll be sure to drop some links in the video as well. So now, for the final sketch, I've rotated my paper to an angle I'm comfortable with because I'm going to be drawing with my shoulder and my elbow. Boom. So that way I can draw nice straight lines and nice circles. I'm also holding my pen further up the barrel, like so. Not like this, because that's how we write, but like that. And that way I can get nice, clean lines. I'm also probably going to overdraw my lines a little bit and not try and stress too much, but I do want to pay attention to accuracy and speed as I do this as well. Now, I know I said don't draw with your wrist or draw with your shoulder, but sometimes it's just a small space and it's a lot easier to just, kind of swing your wrist and get that line the way you need it to be. Okay, let me actually move this soap bottle so the shadow doesn't get in the way here. And I'm not tracing my lines, but redrawing as I go. And that way we breathe new life into the sketch as we're working, okay? So it's not necessarily a slow movement as it is just a nice fluid re-execution of those lines we had previously on our page. Okay, maybe a little double line here for the border of our label, like so. Some text and elements. So now just moving up to the neck of the bottle. There's a little bit of texture here so that we can unscrew this. So I'm going to represent that with some vertical lines. And you might be wondering, why are you skipping some of those lines? Well, I'm trying to concentrate some of the lines so that I create an impression of lighting. Remember I said the light's coming from the top right side of the drawing here. So by leaving out a few lines that are closer to the light, I'm starting to give this sketch a little bit of shading just with the lines, but it's also representative of texture because we're not doing a full marker rendering here. Okay, and just moving up using the same approach, resketch, not trace. Okay, and here we are on the top. Now, I know this is somewhat obscured, but as you focus in and hone in on the top here, you'll notice that there's enough of a gesture. I'm just zooming in, bear with me. Enough of a gesture here that I can now pull out elements. And I'm taking some liberties. It's not an observational drawing so much as a sketch. So just even taking some liberties, but we have the general geometry, a cylinder with the spout that transitions here. Add some line weight, a little bit of a shadow because there's an overlap. There's two things that are on top of each other. So right in there, just a little bit of shadow. Same thing on the neck, like so. And it had some threads So I'm not going to focus on the accurate geometry of the threads, but just suggest using some lines. And a lot of times that's enough just to say, hey, that's threaded. Maybe a little bit of texture here, for example. And because it's a bottle and plastic, in this case, I'm going to actually apply a double line technique. Okay, we'll hit this with a Sharpie to clean this up. But the reason I'm doing that double line technique is that I want to show that this bottle actually has a little bit of thickness to it. So I'm just filling in that ellipse I drew on the ground plane. And by filling this in, I am suggesting that this bottle is casting kind of a shadow. And yeah, there would be probably for the spout here, something like this. So I'll just fudge it for now. Just enough. Okay. A little line for background. So like I said, with the Sharpie, because the light's coming from the right side of the drawing. Oh, sorry, you guys couldn't see that. Let me zoom back out here and cover that. Bear with me. Totally got carried away. My apologies. Okay, so here I filled in that shadow, added some texture on the top, and I'm about to just reinforce, make these lines on the far side a little bit darker, maybe a lot darker. But the idea being, because this is away from the light source, I can compound or reinforce that message in my sketch that there's light on this side by having a difference in line weight with my drawing. With the letters, I kind of feel tempted to fill these in. I wish I could see a little bit of the A, but I'm not really going to see it based on the perspective here. Maybe there's some cursive thing here. It's like, that's the brand of soap. But I kind of want to just fill these in, just for contrast. If you are using a Sharpie, be sure to use it as your last step. Also helpful is if you have, if you're sketching on printer paper, make sure you have a stack of papers behind it. Otherwise, your desk is going to get messed up with that Sharpie bleeding through, okay? All right. Maybe just some graphical element there. All right, just enough. So maybe it's just called SOP, like some clever spelling, sop or soap. You know, you never quite know what marketing's gonna do. In any case, this is our bottle. We did it. Again, if you're gonna sketch something, take a look at it, break it down, try and understand what's making this thing up. You know, what did the designer or the human behind it intend as far as the geometry goes, and how can I represent that geometry in a way that makes sense. And as you can see, by doing that and working light till you get it right, you can have a pretty quick representation of something. I also want to just throw a shadow in here because of the light, and it's going to help ground, or not really ground, but establish that this cylinder here on the top is casting some sort of shadow. Cool? All right. Well, that's it for today's video. Hopefully you're able to get something out of it. I know I did. It's always good to practice. Draw every day, sketch every day, love what you do. I'm so grateful that you guys are watching this video. And if you've watched it this far, absolutely be sure to subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your mama, wife, whoever, that I'm doing these videos because they're good. At least I hope they're good. And if they're not good, tell me. I'll probably take that into consideration. Maybe not. But be nice, please. And also, check out my Instagram, instagram.com/sketchaday.com or @sketchaday.com. That's where I just post sketches. It's not always a video. Sometimes I even do Instagram live videos as well, where I'll do a live sketch and answer questions. So stay tuned for that, and definitely turn on notifications on Instagram as well. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on Sketch-A-Day.